Imagine you're managing a team, right? One employee is constantly knocking on your door asking for overtime pay. Another one is, well, they're practically begging for a challenging mentorship opportunity. And a third, they just want to organize the next team happy hour, preferably on the company card, of course, and build better relationships with their coworkers. So, are they all just motivated by entirely different random things, or is there some kind of hidden pattern here? Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a really common workplace mystery: the varied, and let's be honest, often totally confusing, drivers of employee motivation.
To actually solve this puzzle, we're going to look at a concept that acts as the ultimate motivational decoder ring. It's called ERG Theory. Introduced way back in 1969 by American psychologist Clayton Alderfer, this framework offers a super flexible and highly practical way to understand what is truly driving people when they show up to work every day.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, decoding motivation, then defining ERG needs, ERG versus Maslow, the Frustration-Regression Principle, real-world contexts and criticisms, and finally, the manager's toolkit.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, decoding motivation, and the origins of ERG. So Clayton Alderfer actually based his work directly on Abraham Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs, but Alderfer wanted to create something a bit more evolved, a highly practical approach specifically designed for organizational leaders. You see, he didn't just sit around theorizing in a lab. He went straight to the factory floor in Pennsylvania to test his data empirically with real everyday workers to hone his major ideas. And what he did was categorize all human motivational needs into just 3 distinct buckets: existence, relatedness, and growth.
Moving right along to section 2, defining those ERG needs: existence, relatedness, and growth. First up, we have existence needs. This is your foundation. It covers the basic material requirements for survival. Think food, physical safety, and, in a workplace context, a decent, stable paycheck. Because, let's face it, if you're constantly worried about making rent, it's pretty darn hard to focus on anything else. Next is relatedness. We are social creatures, right? This need reflects our deep desire for meaningful interpersonal connections. We're talking teamwork, feeling genuinely valued by a boss, or getting some public recognition. Finally, we reach growth. This represents our inner drive for personal mastery. It's the engineer staying late because they actually want to learn a new programming language, or an employee actively seeking creative fulfillment and meaningful, challenging work. Section 3, ERG versus Maslow's hierarchy. Let's look at the evolution. Alderfer essentially took Maslow's classic 5-level pyramid and, well, he condensed it. Maslow's physiological and safety needs were squished together into existence. Maslow's social needs and the external parts of esteem, those became relatedness. And then the internal aspects of esteem, along with self-actualization, were merged right into growth. It's just a much more streamlined, practical model. But the absolute biggest conceptual difference here is flexibility. Maslow proposed a very rigid step-by-step progression. He argued that you basically couldn't pursue higher-level needs until the lower ones were completely satisfied. Alderfer? He completely disagreed. ERG theory is incredibly flexible. It recognizes that, hey, we can pursue multiple needs simultaneously. Think of the classic starving artist archetype, someone who is really struggling financially, meaning they have low existence needs met, but they are intensely pursuing creative fulfillment, which is super high growth. ERG theory acknowledges that the order and the priority of these needs vary wildly from person to person. Now for section 4, the Frustration-Regression Principle, also known as the trapdoor. So the absolutely crucial point here is what happens when our higher-level needs remain unfulfilled. We don't just sit there stewing in a state of permanent frustration. Instead, a psychological pivot happens. We naturally redirect our energy toward lower-level needs that actually feel more within our control. And this isn't irrational behavior at all. It's a highly predictable, perfectly natural human coping mechanism.
Let's put this into a real-world perspective. I want you to consider a scenario for a second. Imagine a high-performing, super ambitious employee who suddenly hits a total career ceiling. There is absolutely zero chance for a promotion in the near future. Their growth is completely blocked. So what exactly happens next?
Alderfer maps this cascade out perfectly. Step 1, growth is blocked. Step 2, they regress to relatedness. You might suddenly see this previously career-obsessed employee spending way more time hanging around the water cooler, socializing with coworkers, or seeking validation through office friendships. And if those social relationships also start to become strained, boom, step 3, They regress all the way down to existence needs. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they are demanding higher pay, better perks, or improved working conditions just to compensate for that underlying lack of growth.
Which brings us to Section 5, Real-World Context and Criticisms. Time for a quick reality check.
You know, ERG beautifully explains the unique challenges we see across different types of modern workplaces. Take a startup, for example. Employees there often accept highly uncertain existence needs, like, say, lower pay or shaky job security, because the growth potential and autonomy are just so incredibly high. Or look at remote work environments. There, it's the relatedness needs that really suffer, as those casual, everyday office interactions just vanish. If you've ever felt isolated working from your living room, well, that's your relatedness need taking a huge hit. It means companies have to actively invest in virtual team building to compensate. And what about new hires? For them, existence dominates early on as they just try to establish job security, eventually shifting toward relatedness and growth once they actually feel safe.
But to be completely objective here, ERG theory isn't totally flawless. Critics are quick to point out a few things. First off, empirical evidence is a bit mixed. Some scientific studies simply don't fully back up all of Alderfer's claims. Second, there's ambiguity. Sometimes the line between seeking recognition, which is relatedness, and seeking achievement, which is growth, can get really blurry. Third, the theory was developed very much in a Western context, leading some to argue that it lacks the cultural sensitivity needed for truly global applications. And finally, some psychologists argue that reducing the vast, messy complexity of human motivation down to just 3 simple factors, just a bit too simplistic.
All right, let's wrap this up with Section 6, the Manager's Toolkit, and how we apply this practically. Here is exactly how you can start applying ERG theory tomorrow. First, recognize that focusing on just one need simply won't work. A huge salary isn't going to fix a toxic team culture. You really must address multiple needs simultaneously. Second, and this is huge, watch for the trapdoor. If your star performer suddenly becomes obsessed with minor perks or office gossip, that behavioral shift is a giant red flag signaling frustration regression. You've got to intervene early. Third, customize your one-on-one conversations. Figure out if your employee is primarily driven by existence, relatedness, or growth right now, and then tailor your management strategy to them. And finally, create flexible reward systems. Money is great for existence, sure, but extra vacation time or getting to lead a challenging new project, that might be the exact growth or relatedness rewards someone else actually craves. Alderfer showed us that motivation isn't just some ladder we climb once. It's a dynamic, constantly shifting landscape. So I'm going to leave you with this to think about. When you log into work tomorrow, take a hard look at your own behavior. Which need, existence, relatedness, or growth, is truly driving your motivation today? And honestly, more importantly, if you're feeling frustrated right now, which need are you regressing toward? Understanding that might just be the absolute key to unlocking your own potential. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.